Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fantasy NBA. Today, a Sports Ethos presentation brought to you by our great partners at FanDuel. My name is Aaron Bruski, and I'll be rolling solo for today's show. And I get you guys caught up from a wild weekend of action, also get you guys ready for an 8-game Monday night. As usual, we will have our top 3, maybe more, must-add players from last night. We'll enter the drop zone and ask the old proverbial life and death questions there. We'll get into our guys segment, which will just be my guys. We'll talk about some B150 guys and wax poetic a little bit on that. And then we'll get into tonight's slate with my top 2 streamers of the night. A big list of streamers, of course, I'll also talk about. And then we will be talking drop talk in an extended session at the end of the show. So hang tight, and we're going to get going here. There was a bunch of news from over the weekend. Willie Green got let go by the New Orleans Pelicans. James Borrego is the interim coach, so we'll see what the pivot looks like there. Brandon Miller has returned to basketball activities and has been assigned to the G League team with his shoulder subluxation. And usually an assignment to the G League team means that action is pretty soon. We're going to see him back in action pretty soon. So that's good news there. Kobe White made his season debut in a really wild game last night. Anthony Davis got another 7 to 10 day timetable with owner Patrick Dumont saying, no, you cannot play. We'll see what that looks like when his trade value goes in the tank. We'll be tracking that seemingly forever, it seems. Paul George might be coming back soon. Adem Bona rolled his ankle. Andre Drummond will be a topic du jour. We'll get into that later in the show. Victor Wembanyama missed Sunday's game against the Kings. It was the Kings, but anytime Victor Wembanyama misses time, it gets our attention. And then Kelly Oubre, it wasn't recent news, but on Friday, he suffered a left LCL injury in that game. And watching it, it looked bad. He stayed in and played the next few plays, but as he was racing down the court defensively on a fast break, his leg appeared to, without contact with the ground, appeared to kind of like twist and pivot in ways that legs don't move. And then his next step had the hyperextension looking portion of it, but it was the steps before that. It looked like the leg just kind of snapped out of place. And I thought to myself, oh, that's going to be a bad one. And you never know with these hyperextensions. I mean, probably the most famous recent one was Giannis when he did it in the playoffs and then came back and played. So we just don't know what's what with all of that stuff, and we will keep track of it all. Welcome to our new listeners. Thank you guys for joining the show. If this is your first time watching the show, make sure you get subscribed to us on all of the different platforms because we put content out everywhere. Last night, I put my 30-team notes from the 30-team breakdown that I'll do after this show. So it'll be about 2 or 3 hours of audio video for you guys here today. But the notes from that show, I actually popped it into the Discord channel last night for subscribers to the NBA FantasyPass. So we got a lot of different content going in a lot of different directions. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and on Twitter at Ethos Fantasy NBA, and then get on over to sportsethos.com. We have all sorts of free content there. We have a free app that has all of our news and info. We have a blurb feed, which has been updated with all sorts of new tools on it. So you guys can drill into just the news you want. You can look at just injury news. You can look at buy low, sell high stuff. You can look at the top news. It's really, really cool, and it's just the beginning of what we're doing for our free users over at sportsethos.com. Also, check out the memberships where all of the Bruski 150 projections that, you know, the draft guide and all of the B150, the ranks list at the beginning of the season and the ranks list that I put out a couple times in the middle of the season, the projections for that are the basis for all of our tools for our subscribers. So get on over to sportsethos.com and check out a NBA Fantasy Pass or an All Sport Pass. And I need to get some cold medicine over here. I think I'm sick. I've been sick for like 5 days. Talking at a fast, rapid pace gets a little bit difficult. But enough about me. Let's get into the must-add players from last night. Before we do, some news came in real quick. It looks like Paul George is making his season debut. I did have him in my must-add players of the night list because of this reason. So it looks like this is probably a go. Expected is probably about a 99% chance, especially with a guy like Paul George, who's been taking this step by step the entire time. And watching the film from the great Keith Pompey of, the beat writer for the Philadelphia 76ers, the film for Paul George getting ready for this moment here tonight against the Los Angeles Clippers, his former team. Talk about a return game. He was going through it. He was doing these drills full court where assistant coaches and training staff were essentially riding him the entire way full court. He'd have to go down and finish against them, walk back up to the other side. He looked exhausted, but they were pretty much giving it to him. And that was my first sign that, yes, this is actually definitely happening. The other thing that I think is solid is he looks pretty good. Like he's bigger. This is late career Paul George we're talking about here. The thing that makes him so dangerous is his handle, his ability to pull up. He's definitely more of a finesse shooter, but with the size element that he brings to the table, he's able to also get downhill and do some of the decel and some of the big boy moves. The flip side is that, he's not going to be the Paul George defensively that I think folks think he is. He might trend more toward power forward where they need him to play. And maybe that's why he's put on what I would think is a little bit of extra size for this upcoming year. And that will be big for them operating as a team. They have all these great guards in Philly, and Paul George really needs to be a solid power forward for them. And he lacks overall size for the position. So if he gained a couple pounds of muscle there and he can hold his own, that's just going to be big for them. They're going to have to figure things out on the fly. Kelly Oubre being injured makes this kind of about a plus minus of a 0 loss. Kelly Oubre has been giving him 38 minutes per game. In comes Paul George, would probably give him 30. This team's going to keep operating as they were prior to this. When Kelly Oubre gets back, depending on the nature of the injury, we can then determine what this looks like with a full house here. But, between all of that and then Joel Embiid also being out, that would keep this team from being overloaded, at least in the short term here. When they're all playing together, we're going to have some questions about how all of them can coexist. But Joel Embiid may not ever get there. So we might be looking at a situation where all of the different fantasy players can survive at least a little bit, maybe perhaps with the exception of VJ Edgecombe, who we like a lot, but seems to be the odd man out when things get tight there. I'm going to talk about Andre Drummond at length in the B150 segment. He's a must-add player. So whether it's Paul George or Andre Drummond, if those folks are available in your fantasy league, stop what you're doing right now and go pick them up, because both of them are going to have big-time roles going forward, obviously. Okay, who else is on the must-add players of the night? I'm going to assume, and you can get into trouble with that, but I'm going to assume that Dillon Brooks is rostered in all formats. But because he's been out a lot this season, there is this potential for folks to not really have gathered what kind of a player he has been this season. He's been a top 40 guy, went on the floor, and he had 34 points last night against the Atlanta Hawks. Not exactly a cakewalk with some of those defenders either. And the story with Brooks is he's back to chucking, and everybody else can kind of get out of the way. And he's got that license in Phoenix. I don't think it's going to be top 50 the rest of the way. He also has injury concerns. But if you want to pencil him in for top 75 or top 100 at worst, I think that's probably where Dillon Brooks produces this season. It's a massive win for him in the sense that we didn't know if he was going to get this license this season. He'll take the license unless it's told to him that he cannot. I guess in the case of Memphis's general manager, Brooks claimed that he was told he could only take 6 shots or something in a playoff game. So you kind of got to tell Dillon Brooks that he can't have that license. But it feels like he has that license right now. And again, 75 and 100 is great value for him. Usually he's a back into the late round, 125, 150, or even 175 guy. So it's all good for Dillon Brooks. And you got Jalen Green out as well. So for at least a month or two, this is kind of going to be what it is. And with the potential for him to be very good, which he has been thus far this season. More news starting to roll in here as we get into the middle of the morning/afternoon, depending on which coast you're on here in the United States. Zion Williamson, left hamstring, questionable for tonight. Not really an update there, but I guess a no news update, as we like to call it in the blurb work. Let's go to our next must-add player, and let's make that none other than Colin Gillespie. We talk about Gillespie a lot on this show. We'll probably talk a little bit about him later today and also in the 30-team breakdown. But he got 32 minutes last night, coming off of a slow week where, there was questions out of some circles about whether or not he should be held. In my circle, we're not talking like that. But the fact that he got the 32 minutes, 15 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, and a triple, also left the game because of quad cramps, and said after the game that was a mistake in hydration. And this is the second time he's been pulled from action because of something smaller. There was a back issue about a week ago. And I don't know who's handling the hydration over there in Phoenix, but get that man some water. And the minutes and the production and all of the things for Colin Gillespie are just all in the right spots. Slid a little bit down to the top 100 to 120 range when you factor in some of these bad games. His shooting percentages are way down during this overall season-long sample. He's sub 40, and I want to say, without looking it up, 75% from the foul line. And this is a guy that I want to say shot 85% in his senior year in college. So we know he can shoot the free throws. He's going to be a little bit better from the field. At this level of 24 minutes per game that he's gotten on the season, that probably plays more like 90 to 100 if he's hitting his shots at the rate that we believe he can. And then, of course, if he starts to get more minutes, which has been the story and why we've been so excited about Colin Gillespie, is we think he's good enough to get the minutes, and there's enough injury issues or risks ahead of him in Phoenix to give him the ramp he needs, not just now, but for the entire season to be good. So if you have little lulls when the team is at full strength, I would say don't worry. Just ride this the entire season, and the hope will be that you get an average top 75 per game guy throughout the entire year with a potential top 50 finish, and a guy that nobody even knew was being deployed in Phoenix, and you could get him with your last pick in fantasy drafts, which we did. The other must-add player that I like, but I'm still on the fence about, and I think you kind of got to be a little bit aggressive here, is Derek Queen. And then I'll have a couple more obvious must-add players, but I want to hit Derek Queen here real quick. He had 25 minutes in a start yesterday, 9.7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 blocks. The peripheral numbers for Derek Queen aren't where we want them to be right now, but it feels like they've made a commitment to him playing, and he's surviving against teams like Golden State that could probably, if they want to, play him off the floor. But that's not going to happen. And yes, they got run by Golden State in this one, and how much Derek Queen played a role in that is probably very debatable because the entire team is bad. But Queen having the popcorn stats, and sometimes the efficiency is not mattering, especially in head-to-head leagues, that's positioning him well for the long term. But the fact that the last third of the season, it just might be Derek Queen time. Whether it works or not, we're not concerned with in fantasy leagues. As long as he's out there getting numbers, getting some form of accolades. His offense is definitely getting accolades right now. He's one of these players that it does take some time for the league to adjust to, because he's beating you with the kinds of the tricky moves, the slow moves, the hesitations, the unorthodox stuff. And right now everybody's just getting their first look at him. But offensively, he's never really been the question mark for him. It's just defensively, when will a team care enough to play him off the floor? And we'll see if that's the case going forward. But from a fantasy perspective, these numbers are good enough to want this player on the end of your roster rather than not want him on the end of your roster. So Derek Queen is that guy. That could have led with Moses Moody on this list. 32 points yesterday, 8 triples, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, and 1 block. A top 100 value on the season in just 24 minutes per game. And it feels like Golden State has locked him into the starting role for the foreseeable future. And I don't think Jonathan Kuminga is going to dislodge him, at least until they really want to showcase and highlight him for trade. I think that Moses Moody is above him in the pecking order. And there could be some lulls from time to time because of the nature of the position, as well as the nature of the Kuminga situation. But Moses Moody, top 100, 24 minutes per game. I think you're looking and hoping for 28 minutes per game out of him, with the consistency of a player that when his bad nights hit, they're not so bad. You can actually live with them. So Moses Moody should definitely be rostered. Dennis Schroeder had 22 points with 5 3-pointers, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and Zach LaVine getting benched in the fourth quarter of a game against De'Aaron Fox. All the optics, they are what they are. LaVine plays defense kind of just casually, because he's there, and doesn't really bother him because he's going to get the ball on offense, the next time down the floor anyway. So why not play some defense? And you kind of get the point there. Schroeder's been struggling, and really he's probably just struggling with the fact that this team is one of the worst put together teams that I've seen in a while, and they're imploding over there in Sacramento. But Schroeder had a great first week. He is a good basketball player. We saw that in Eurobasket. We saw it in Detroit, saw it in prior stops. It's not a Dennis Schroeder issue in Sacramento. It's a team construction issue, but he should, if given the minutes, be at least a late round guy for you. And there's enough there for, I think, folks to kind of put up with this. Just know that if it gets ugly, you got to put him on your bench. And you're probably just hoping at some point through the wreckage that somebody goes somewhere else. And, for whatever reason, it's more consistent on a day-to-day basis for Dennis Schroeder. But he's been real bad, and he might not be rostered in your league. So if he is not, I would recommend going to pick him up. Tristan da Silva had a nice night in 40 minutes, 20 points, 8 boards, 4 steals, 2 3-pointers. He's been a late round value over the last week. I'm not a huge believer in his stat set. Same thing with Anthony Black. They got a window of opportunity here to do something with Paolo Banchero out, but I don't trust them beyond that, and I don't trust them for more than late round value during this span. Luke Cornett had 13 and 11 with 3 blocks against the Kings. I just like the way that the Spurs appear to be focusing on this pairing with he and Wemby. Yes, Wemby was not there in this last one. Yes, Cornett can disappear from time to time, but he's shaping up to be a late round value. And these big men, a la Ryan Kalkbrenner, that can get out there and get you field goal percentage and get you rebounds and get you blocks and, do it kind of under the radar. It's good business, and they can jump up the ranks real quick. So Luke Cornett's on the radar. Not necessarily a must-add. Paul George is a must-add. Reed Shepherd had another solid night. I think with all of the negative press surrounding Reed Shepherd in the first couple of weeks, I doubt he's available out there, but just go and check. He's been great the last couple weeks and just kind of cruising. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Let's hit up the drop zone, as we have both a drop zone segment and then also an expanded segment on holds and drops later in the show. So we'll go really quick through this one, but the top of my drop zone list here has Anthony Simons, bottom of the top 200, just 12 minutes in the last game. Not enough juice to the squeeze there. I think he can be safely dropped. Royce O'Neal, believe we'll talk about later, so I'll go ahead and skip him. Keon Ellis, 15 minutes despite getting the starting nod. There's enough good happening right now with Keon Ellis that we probably want to just forgive this outcome. It feels like with the fans chanting his name in the arena and the team getting laughed at for talking about defense and not playing their defensive guys, and Keon Ellis being sort of a late season guy anyway, the fact that all of this damage and disaster is happening right out the gates is better for Keon Ellis rather than not. Is he a must-hold guy? Not at all. But I do think you want to be ahead of that train because he can get up to top 50 value really quick just by being on the floor. Josh Minot, 11 and a half minutes. Herb Jones, 29 minutes. You know what? I'm going to hold all these guys, actually. I want to hold them for the end of this segment. Let's get to the Bruski players of the night. Might as well just do that all in one bunch. Bruski players of the night. So Andre Drummond and Adem Bona have been, especially Adem Bona, have been talked about in this space all season long. Adem Bona ranked very high in the B150, had a great top 20 finish to last season. And when you look at the Philadelphia Sixers and you do it in the preseason, you see Joel Embiid and you see Andre Drummond, and you kind of go, these guys can't even stay on the floor. Joel Embiid is what he is. And then Drummond, typically 20 minutes per game, starts to poop out, starts to get a little injured. How much could Andre Drummond factor in to a Philadelphia 76er season? And you look at Bona, and he's flying around the court. He's doing all this defensive stuff, and he looks like the future. And the Sixers don't really profile all that well to win games. Fast forward to now. VJ Edgecombe is that dude. Tyrese Maxey is a top 5 player in the league right now, at least statistically, but by his play, I mean, you should start talking about him like that. You got Quentin Grimes. What were they going to do there? Well, they kept him, and Quentin Grimes is doing exactly what we thought Quentin Grimes would be doing, another B150 darling. Kelly Oubre, super good, competitive. Okay. what's up with these Sixers? They're winning games and not winning all the games, not beating the good teams, but they're winning games. They look good. They look tough, like a very tough out in the East. And you don't really even have Joel Embiid contributing to that. In fact, when he's on the floor, they're not quite as good. Enter Andre Drummond. Enter the solution to the Adem Bona issue. And this has actually worked out really nice for my squads because Adem Bona not getting it done, there's 75% of his film is like, yeah, that guy needs to be out there. He just did an amazing thing. That defensive, just simply by standing on the floor, the other team not able to do what they want to do on the floor, and we're going the other direction. And you see all these things that coaches love. Okay, cool. The other 25%, not standing in the right place, not an option on offense, and drifting, whatever the rookie stuff is out there that he's doing. Oh, that's the stuff that coaches hate. Okay, well, maybe he's not going to be on the floor as a result of that. All right. Film's good for Adem Bona, but not great. Now you got this Andre Drummond guy. What the hell is going on with Andre Drummond? I've been watching every Sixers game, tracking Adem Bona, and it basically started with, why does Andre Drummond look pretty good out there? And now it's, oh my God, look at Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond at however many pounds, and you guys have watched this as I've talked about it on the show here. At that many pounds, he's moving as well as I've seen him moving in, say, the last 5 years of his career. And I mean, dare I say, harking back to his early career stuff where he was one of the most physical players in the league and had all of the tools except for the things that would make him great, which would be shooting and dribbling and all of the things. Fast forward back to now, I'm watching him move out there and I'm saying, I don't know if the other team can isolate him and really make him pay the way that a man his size should have to pay for a small guard coming around a screen and going to the basket at full speed. He's sliding out there kind of like a cat. And I'm just sort of jaw on the ground laughing, like, are we going to get a peak Andre Drummond season here, sort of out of nowhere? And by the way, is this going to solve the Adem Bona issue? Because we still, with Andre Drummond and Joel Embiid, cannot look at them and say, oh, these guys will be around all season. I mean, Joel Embiid's already missing games for his other knee now. And what are we going to call him? Like a 50% participant for the rest of the season, a 33% participant for the rest of the season. So somebody has to step into that void. Adem Bona just snapped his ankle, it looked like. He's got a 3-game off timetable. If it was worse, I think they would have said more. But when he landed on that ankle, it completely went underneath him. And he looked really, really hurt. And then he scurried off the floor at the end of the fourth quarter. Probably it was like the Q3, Q4 of the last game. And that's all we saw. And that's all we heard. And until we got the report, he might be out for a while. You might be looking at Andre Drummond as the only center in Philly. And aside from all of what I just said, they're running offensive plays for him right now behind the 3-point line in the corner. And it's kind of hard to cover. He's got a high release point on that shot. So anybody trying to challenge that shot is really having a hard time with it. Because of his size, teams are employing bigger defenders that don't want to get out on the perimeter. And he's kind of taking layup threes out there. I don't know how teams are going to react to this or if they're going to be like the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th guy on the scouting report. But the bottom line is this. He has a role on offense. He gets open underneath the hoop for all of the little stuff. He's got great touch underneath there. Defensively, if he's not being targeted and exposed, he's going to play minutes. He's getting 30-plus minutes a game in some of these contests. He's got 3 games and 4 nights here to start this week. Maybe he just settles into a top 100 production. Maybe he can't handle more than 25 minutes per game. But what we've known with Drummond is that he's a per-minute guy. And if he gets more than the 20, if he gets up to 25 and 30, we're looking at a potential top 50 guy. Okay, now what do we do with Adem Bona? We know what we've seen in the past. We know what he's capable of. We know that early in the season of a competitive year that the Philadelphia 76ers might not be as inclined to play somebody like that, which we've seen. But these two players with injury histories a mile long, if they go down, who's next? Adem Bona. So this is a very long way of saying that Andre Drummond and Adem Bona handcuffed together, that's the way you play this thing in Philadelphia. So you can have all the upside. And that's why you have both of them on your team. Now, if you need to drop a Dembona for roster space, I think you could do that right now, no problems. But if you have Andre Drummond, you could play this any number of ways. You could probably stash a Dembona on the waiver wire, come back and get him as needed, but just make sure that you have that handcuff arrangement as much as possible, because if Drummond goes down, then you step into the upside that we were thinking a Dembona would get earlier in the season, and it might not happen until these injuries occur. So that's how you play it right there. The other players of the night, we talked about Gillespie at length, so I'll pass through that. Reed Shepherd, we just got to point out with Reed Shepherd that he's playing at about a top 80 level right now. His shooting's a little bit high. The minutes, are down, but everything's in the right place. I'll go into a deeper dive later in the 30-team show, but defensively, the numbers are there. And I'll give you a little hint. He's actually got better defensive numbers than Amen Thompson right now. So Reed Shepherd, for all of the shade that he got earlier in the season, he's doing just fine. And you guys want to make sure you buy into that or buy low even into that before the news starts to catch up with the reality on the ground. My last comment is on B150, guys, is Desmond Bane needs to start stealing the ball. His steals rate is at about a third of what it was last season. Everything else is there for him, but we need to see that steals number go way up. All right, guys, let's get into our streamers of the night. And my two favorites, I don't know if I outlined my two favorites yet, but I'll start rattling them off, and then I'll highlight which ones are my favorites, and we'll circle around which ones are the top two as we go. So news just hit: Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively both out for Monday's game. I don't know if they have anybody to play. So we'll talk about Dallas here in a second. But let's start with Isaiah Stewart and Duncan Robinson, with Cade Cunningham and Asar Thompson questionable at home against Indiana. Robinson has been a little bit better lately. Stewart is probably rostered in a lot of situations. Jalen Duren's probable for this one. Isaiah Stewart's had standalone value. And with those other guys out, then he's probably going to be pretty good, I would think, in this one. Indiana really struggling in general as a basketball team, so the matchup is ripe there. Dennis Jenkins, I'll talk about in the next show, is must roster player. I'll leave it at that. In the next contest, I like Sam Merrill and Craig Porter Jr. actually at home against Milwaukee with Darius Garland and Jalen Tyson out. Sam Merrill, probably a good bet to get you a top 100 line with about 3 or 4 3-pointers and not much else beyond that. Really mechanical stuff there with Sam Merrill. But Craig Porter Jr., he has put up some monster lines, and they're out of nowhere. If you're in a league where streamers are hard to come by and you're looking in a deeper kind of pool there, just know that Craig Porter had, I think it was 4 steals and 3 blocks with a very full line. In a similar situation with other players out. Now you do have Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley playing, as well as Jared Allen in that game. So it's not like everybody's out. But if Craig Porter Jr. got you a top 150 line, I wouldn't be that surprised. I like Moussa Diabate. He might be one of the top 2 streamers of the night. I'm still thinking about it. Kalkbrenner is in this game. They're in Toronto. Diabate has been a late-round center, despite being overshadowed by what Ryan Kalkbrenner has been doing. So he's available in a lot of formats out there. I do like the fact that it feels like his free throw shooting might come around a little bit this season. And I think the overall production, it's not Moussa Diabate getting 30 minutes and barely having late-round value, as was the case last season. This is Moussa Diabate doing all of that in lower minutes in a situation that feels conducive to fantasy value in Charlotte. So those are all good things, and that's why I like him at the top of this list, toward the top of this list. If you want to do Landry Fields or Jordan Clarkson in Miami, I would probably rather have Davion Mitchell, but they're coming off bigger games, especially Landry Fields, who had a real big one. I don't trust it. Davion Mitchell, late round value at best is what I think you're looking for there, but at least he hits hard in the categories that he's good in. Max Christie, Najee Marshall, no Derek Lively, Brandon Williams, Klay Thompson. So Christie, Marshall, Williams, and Klay Thompson, probably depending on your format. If you are in a roto format, I would lean Christie and maybe even Najee Marshall over Brandon Williams. With Williams, Love a lot of different things. In a head-to-head format, the points and the steals are going to sing a little bit more. He gets you some boards and assists in those situations as well. I'm not so convinced that he's able to get you the boards and the assists on a consistent basis. The other numbers are not there. So in a roto situation, somebody like Max Christie, who's been about a top 60 value over the last week or so, doing all of the things together in concert, that works much better. Najee Marshall, in a similar situation last year, was rolling around top 50 production at his best. That's why I like him as a stream in this situation, is you can get something for this game and then possibly something beyond that. Klay Thompson's been hitting about 4 threes a game lately in this new configuration. It's all he's doing. So, if you need threes, that's where you're looking. And we'll see a lot about how Dallas wants to operate going forward. Isaiah Joe and Lou Dort in New Orleans is a great matchup. Joe is probably your second, maybe first best streamer in this list. I probably would have Diabate above him just from the standpoint of potential rest of season value, though Joe will probably be just fine. It's up and down for him. Lou Dort hasn't been good this year. This team has 4 games this week. Maybe this is the week that Lou Dort gets back and going. And then New Orleans coming off of the back-to-back loss. You get the dead coach bounce. You've got all sorts of stuff going on there. But within all of that, Jeremiah Fears, Sadiq Bey, Derek Queen, Jose Alvarado are guys that may or may not be available on your waiver wire. It's Oklahoma City, and they crush box scores. So I don't like this group for those reasons. But I do like Isaiah Joe because New Orleans can give up a lot of points, and somebody like Joe might have 28 points in this game. Trey Jones is doubtful. I don't know if we've got an update on him, but if that spins the other direction and he can play, because you got Kobe White and Josh Giddey played big minutes. Kobe in his debut, Giddey getting back on track from his ankle issue. A lot of games this upcoming week. The back-to-back in Denver is historically bad. You fly in there at like 3 a.m, and then you get an hour drive from the airport, from the plane to the terminal. It's been a while, so I don't know how that all goes perfectly, but it's a long ass time. And then it's the minutes. And so if Trey Jones is playing, somehow he would be a big beneficiary. But Kevin Huerter, Ayo Dosunmu, and even Jalen Smith's been a little bit decent-ish lately. And they could all be in play as streamers. Just keep in mind Denver might roll these guys, and it might be an ugly box score after the double overtime thriller against the Jazz last night. So just a lot of minutes played for that group. And then on the flip side, Tim Hardaway Jr., Peyton Watson, and maybe even Bruce Brown are ready to benefit both from the Christian Brown absence as well as this team being tired from last night's game, the Chicago Bulls, that is. And then Nikola Jokic was probable with a left wrist sprain. It'd be a good game to rest him if I was Denver. Not saying that I'm rooting for it, but that would be good business. Let's get to what we're watching for tonight, and then we'll get out of here fairly quick. Oh, wait, pardon me. I'm sorry. We have holder drop. We're not getting out of here quick at all. But with that, what I'm watching for tonight is Andre Drummond, the consistent role. What does that look like? The Clippers, you got the Paul George stuff as well. I'll be watching that, but the Clippers have the big, so Andre Drummond's going to get a lot of action, and can he stay on the floor without fouling out? Is a big question. Dennis Jenkins, I want to see what that looks like tonight. I got a lot of Dennis Jenkins takes for the next show, so we'll save them for there, but I'm just watching like a hawk. And that should tell you guys what I'm thinking there. And then what's up with Dallas in this post Nico Harrison scenario, as alluded to in the streamer section, and Derek Queen in New Orleans. It's actually kind of a slow night in terms of like things I'm watching for. Usually there's about 5 or 10 big ones, but this tonight there's only 3. So maybe that signals that things are solidifying in fantasy leagues at least a little bit. Let's get to holder drop. We'll kind of rapid fire fly through some of these guys, because some of them are clear, but some of them will be more complicated. We'll see what's what. Dropping or holding Herbert Jones. 29 minutes last night. He got 2 steals, basically nothing else. Just top 175 value on the season. I think it's okay to drop Herbert Jones, even in a roto setting where the numbers really pop more often. With Herbert, it's basically a luxury stash at this point for the hopes that he can start producing top 75 value for you. And it used to be the case that you could even hope for a little bit more, like top 50 value out of the guy. I think that he's sort of quote, lost it. I think he's fallen in the pecking order. I think he's lost his confidence offensively. I think that he has relegated himself to kind of a bystander, and it really, when it rains, it pours in these kinds of situations. So he's in a funk right now. And in a head-to-head setting where steals are the only draw there in such a variable category, I think people have long past moved on there. And then you just got to look at that as a luxury stash for the hope that top 75 is around the corner. And that's not great math in a lot of situations. So I'm okay with a drop. Royce O'Neal is on this list after his stinker. Now, he's been a top 80 to 90 guy on the season. I think in a head-to-head setting, you might discount that a little bit, but the numbers actually show up pretty well in a head-to-head setting when he's cooking. He does this where he'll take a couple weeks off throughout the year, and then you drop him, and then he comes right back, and he gets back into that top 75 realm. Injuries surrounding him, a lot of opportunity in Phoenix. They're playing well in Phoenix. Royce O'Neal is a big part of what they do there, so I would not drop Royce O'Neal. Kelly Oubre, I would hang on to until we get clarity on his injury. He has been great this season, and he's a big part of what they do with or without Paul George. And if Paul George comes back, stays healthy, if Joel Embiid plays and Kelly Oubre is back and the whole band is back together, we can talk about what to do with Kelly Oubre at that point. But I think there's enough upside here for folks to hold on. Jeremiah Fears, I'm concerned that he's not going to get the stat set going and make it worthwhile in a lot of those formats. But there's talent there. There's at least a reason to think about this one. I would prefer to call him almost a luxury stash at this point, and then you guys can kind of work out the details from there. At some point in time in, say, March or April, Jeremiah Fears will probably score over 20 points per game, get you multiple threes, get you enough stats to get him up and over the top 100 line. But until then, it's not going to be worth it on a month-to-month basis as we get closer to that time. So that's where I land on that. Naz Reid starting to heat up a tiny bit, and I do think that Naz Reid is more of a top 100, 125 guy than the 150, 175, 200 guy that we've seen to start the season. And he's got a defined role. He's a skilled basketball player. There's a lot of rationale for him being a must-roster player, even with the slow start. So I think you hold with Naz Reid. With TJ McConnell, I'm so iffy with Indiana in general that he's not a must-roster player. And I would kind of cap his upside at like top 90 to 100 and really dependent even. I was going to say 9-cat formats, but I'm not even sure that 9-cat formats will be good for him. The efficiency issues for this squad and the potential for more turnovers, the potential for them to ask a TJ McConnell to do more than he's comfortable with, I think lingers here. So I think if top 100 upside works for you in a very deep situation, that's where you want to be holding a TJ McConnell, not in a situation with 156 players in a standard league where 125 isn't all that impressive. Do I want to wait and deal with the injury risk or even what's happening in Indy? Can they pull anything together in Indianapolis? Then the Benedict Mathurin return will be very, very telling, and we'll get some data, and that will determine, I think, a lot of the rest of season trajectory, because I don't see things getting better for Indiana this season. I see things getting worse, and I see them kind of heading toward the exits because of the bad start. Josh Minot is on this list, and I think instead of rating him as a mid-round upside, we need to rate him as a late-round upside with the upside beyond that. But what we need to just basically do is assume that he's going to be yanked around the lineup quite a bit for at least the first half of the season. And that, in a good scenario, not even in a neutral scenario, in a good scenario for Josh Minot, means late round value. And that's going to mean a lot of holes in your lineup. That means when you deploy him after a hot streak, he's going to come back and possibly give you zeros. And you almost are better off playing him after the zeros, because they're going to kind of yo-yo this thing around. We want to show you that you got to do the right things. Up now, you've not played any time. Up, let's give you some minutes so you don't fall completely off the wagon. And that game of yo-yo continues for all the rest of the season until they flip the switch and they decide that he's a core part of what they're doing. Jordan Walsh is outplaying him right now, and they want to see what they have there and see if they can actually function with him on the basketball floor. He's been better this season. You always looked at him and thought, maybe what if, could this guy actually put it together? laterally, and then skills-wise, with more than just being a glue guy, can he actually give you something more beyond that while bringing the athleticism and the court awareness to a point where he's playable? Well, it's kind of happening this season for him. We just don't know if it will be consistent, and a lot of moving parts right now in Boston. Kyle Filipowski shows up on this list. I'm happy with Kyle Filipowski right now. I'm getting low-end Kyle Filipowski lines. I can live with that. I think I'll actually talk about him in greater detail in the next show, so stay tuned for that. Brandon Pajemski, I think as a late-round guy, you're happy. Just kind of consider him to be, if you need to drop him because of a hot free agent like an Andre Drummond, a Dennis Jenkins, somebody like that, I think you could do that, just knowing it's a late-round value, and you can find some of those late-round values on the waiver wire. Isaiah Collier, same thing, probably a worse projection there. I think he's going to have utility. I think he could be a good thing for this Utah basketball squad. I don't think anything above top 100 value is in play for him, at least right now, as the Jazz are currently constructed. So I think you can drop Isaiah Collier. Malik Monk, I'll put it to you like this with Malik Monk. The Kings don't value him at all. So expect there to be bumps and bruises, and he might also play well. And I don't know that it changes the calculus for how the Kings view him. Not great for Malik Monk. Davion Mitchell, late round guy. I think you can move on at any point in time from him during the course of the season. Trey Jones, if you want to get ahead of what could be the drop underneath like a 125 or a 150 value for him, I think you can, with the pretext of it's possible Trey Jones is just back and that you drop somebody that has value down the road because Kobe White could get injured. Josh Giddey dealing with an injury. This team not having a ton of depth. Trey Jones having his place in the pecking order. It just takes one injury for him to get going. And oh, by the way, he might actually still be good. Might still be a late round guy. You just never know. Josh Giddey has this way of raising the level of the fantasy games of the players around him. And that's what's happened so far this season. Trey Johnson really struggling. And I think when they talk in Washington about the young guys not getting enough or not playing well enough to justify their minutes, he and Bub Carrington are sort of on the tips of their tongue in Washington. I don't think the other guys are going to take them off the floor because they're actually helping winning. The veterans are still playing there. It's just not Trey Johnson's moment. I had higher hopes for him, and I had recommended holding in a lot of situations earlier in the season. And I think I'm at a point right now where it's going to take a couple months, and I'm fine cutting him loose. And we'll look at that as we go through the season in Washington. Another guy that I think it's time to let go of is Jake LaRavia. You got LeBron coming back. You've got a 1-game week, or probably 2-game week this week. The games are really super spread out. LaRavia had a bad week, coming off of a couple good weeks. We've seen what he can do. We're going to keep an eye on him as the season goes on. In reality basketball, he's a great player. In fantasy, he's about to get LeBron'd. So if you want to move on from that, feel free. I mentioned at the top Anthony Simons. I don't see anything there for him this season. Isaiah Jackson, another kind of mediocre week, kind of sort of good. I just don't think there's enough there for him this season. And then Draymond Green really only getting you low-end rebounds and good assists, and everything else is in the trash. And I just don't think with a guy that's his age, that's going to take some games off, that isn't dying to get stats, and the numbers aren't there right now. Sure, he could come back and be a top 100 value for a little bit here and there, maybe even finish the season in a top 125, 150 range, but I just don't think it's worth the hassle. So saying goodbye to Draymond Green. And that's going to do it for this show. I'm going to be doing the 30-team breakdown after a small break, get all this figured out with the illness here, and then get recharged, and we will go again. So watch out for the show link. Keep an eye out for the box score breakdown at the ends of nights after the games. You got Tim Woodson and William Harris breaking it down. It's an invaluable tool in the arsenal of that we provide you here at Sports Ethos. Make sure that you are subscribed to the show. Big thanks to producer Andre Lemouche. Doc, you're not here, so no thanks to you and your texts. You're scaring the crap out of me with your texts, sir. I get a text about Desmond Bain, and I'm like, what happened? What happened with my Desmond Bain? And then he just had a normal night. Stop scaring me, Doc, and I know you're listening. Big thanks to the content team, Mike Pastor, Cousin Paul, Mark Camaro, These guys are cranking out all sorts of great stuff. Check out the cheat sheet. It's for our subscribers. It's all this value just boiled down to the most actionable pieces of information. You just cut through all that social media noise like it's nothing. It is great. Make sure you have the app so you can be nice and dialed in as we get to lineup lock. All those things are super important. And that's going to do it for this show here. This has been Fantasy NBA Today, presented by FanDuel. See you guys in a few minutes here.